start that. Hello, and thank you for joining me. I am Dr. Annette Feravich with Healthy Mind, Body, Spirit. And don't forget, you can always find me on the internet at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. And today I am wearing my mask to remind you that we are getting into the cold and flu season. And so it's important to remember that we need to still, I want to get this a little bit straight, that we need to still mask up, don't forget. And I like to mask up in fun ways so that I don't find it so annoying. I go to school, and we are all masking up at school, and then I go out in the public and into public places, include like the grocery store, and I don't see a lot of people masking up. Don't forget, it is cold and flu season, and in cold and flu season, we're more likely to get viruses. And so please make sure that you are wearing your masks, okay, and make them fun. Please also make sure that you are using your hand sanitizer. And so don't forget, use your hand sanitizer. Shackley has a great hand sanitizer. Wash your hands often. And also, I like to keep these in my purse, so I have these little wet wipes. I wish Shackley would make some of these small, compact ones. Don't forget, though, that they add a lot of waste, and so I don't use them very often, but I like to keep them in my purse when I'm traveling or when I'm going out. All right, so don't forget, once again, we want to stay healthy. And also, don't forget that Shackley Nutrition and Shackley Supplements I find to be the best way that I can stay healthy. One of the things that I told my students recently, I see a lot of people who are pasty white and getting whiter during this time of year. I need to adjust here. And getting whiter this time of year. And don't forget, we need our vitamin D. And vitamin D supplements at Shackley are only $10, and you get 2,000 international units with each one of their pills. This is pretty good. In the wintertime, you might want to take a couple supplements. But one of the things that vitamin D does is it helps us absorb other vitamins. I've said this many times, like C, which is also we need to boost up in the wintertime, and also our zinc we need to boost up in the wintertime. Okay? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. And one of the things I want to get started with let's go ahead and get started. And one of the things that I want to get started with is letting you know this is our last episode in our series. So our series is on depression and behavior. And this last episode that we have today is actually helping us go a little bit into the holidays. Wrong side today. There we go. Okay, and so as we're going into the holidays, what do we want to talk about today? Today we want to talk about dealing with the holidays in just very emotionally healthy ways, okay? So today we are going to be talking about some of the ways that we can deal with the holidays and healthy ways that help us stay both mentally healthy as well as physically healthy. And in this way, we can learn how to enjoy the holidays a little bit more. Every year we have great expectations when we go into the holidays. I'm sure you do, just like I do, that I'm going to get shopping done early and that this is going to be some time for me to really relax. Well, it's very hard for all of us to relax. For me, it's hard to relax because this is grading time of the year. And right now, it's even pressure for me to get the grades done for my students while I'm here trying to record my final episode. So, and so don't forget that I teach, but my school is neither affiliated with what I do nor do they endorse what I do. Okay, so today is our final episode in Depression and Behavior, episode number 7, and that episode is Dealing with the Holidays. Okay, so let's take a look at today's agenda. And for today's agenda, I'm going to keep trying to get it a little bit shorter and within our time limit. And don't forget, if I start on time, likely we'll get closer to our time limit. But what we're talking about today is, first of all, when we are talking about dealing with the holidays, what exactly are we dealing with? So I thought of a few things that it would be important to address today for dealing with the holidays. So first of all, the holidays can be wonderful times for individuals, but for most of us, it actually comes with a lot of anxiety. And so today we want to talk about dealing with the anxiety that we have during the holidays. The next thing that we want to talk about is what else do we deal with during the holidays? The other thing I was thinking that we deal with during the holidays that sometimes could be difficult is dealing with being alone. Not all of us have families to go home to. Not all of us even prefer to go home to those families, even when we do have families to go home to. So what about dealing with being alone? The holidays, very often, the reminders that we are home by ourselves, or they are reminders that we don't have people to share these special times with. What do we do about that? And then the last thing I thought about during the holidays that brings us significant stress is money. So we're going to take a look at also dealing with money. So those three things: anxiety, being alone, and dealing with money. Okay, so just as a little bit of a review, I said this part of it is talking about what are we dealing with. All right, so when we're looking at what we're dealing with, what we're really dealing with, as we have said, are feelings of helplessness. When we are basically trying to rocket around the holidays, right? So we want to be kind of sort of superhuman during the holidays. We have a lot to do. We have a lot of shopping, and we have to decide who we're going to shop for and who we're not going to shop for. We have lists to look at, who's giving me a list and who doesn't give me a list. And then I've got my job responsibilities, which are considerable, as I'm sure yours are. And so we want to sort of rock it during the holidays, right? But what we end up doing is oftentimes feeling like we don't have control. And that feeling of not having control, we can call feelings of helplessness. So maybe what we want to do is start right there. We want to start with the idea that we want to gain control. Now, we don't need to be, like Hitler about gaining control, right? We want to do this in ways that make us feel good, because we can't control all things. The only thing that we can do is control ourselves. Sometimes there are environmental circumstances that are out of our control, and certainly other people's behaviors are out of our control. And so what we have to do is we have to, again, not be so rigid in this idea that I have to have control of everything. When we feel like we need control of everything, we put expectations on people that likely we have no business putting those kinds of expectations on them, no matter who they are in our lives. All right? That just brings about great disappointment usually, especially when we jack up those expectations, and motivate them with our emotions, right? Okay, so feelings of helplessness when we don't have control, but realize what you do have control of, which sometimes isn't which all the time isn't everything. We never have full control over everything. So those things we don't have control over often leave us feeling helpless. So think about those things that you can have control over, and in what ways can you control those things. Okay, unfortunately, I am not going to be able to do the little video thing that I wanted to do for you here, which is a cute little animation here, which is demonstrating how helplessness leads to feelings of hopelessness. Yeah, I thought I might be able to do it, but I can't, and I'm not going to worry about it. All right, so when we feel that we have no control, what that ends up leading to are these feelings of we call hopelessness, that there's nothing I can really do about my predicament. Again, this has to do with feelings of control. So if I feel helpless and I feel like I don't have control, this is going to lead me to feelings of hopelessness. And what happens when I feel hopeless? What happens is I end up giving up. So helplessness leads to hopelessness, which then leads to giving up. And so I've talked about this several times throughout this series. And so go back on some of my other series, especially like depression and behavior and depression and anxiety, where we're talking about how this leads to feelings of giving up. And when I give up, what ends up happening? When I give up, it is going to lead to depression. Why is it going to lead to depression? Because it is activity in particular that can actually walk us out of depression. That's the reason why I talk about depression and behavior. It's activity that walks us out of depression. When I give up, and think about all the areas then that I can continue to pursue to walk me out of depression, or those areas then that I can choose to give up in. Okay, so let's say that looking for a job, right? I've been looking for a very long time. I don't know what I really want. I can't really find the job that I think suits my talents best, right? So I begin to feel like I don't have control over my future, which leads to a feeling of hopelessness. Why would I invest in my future? And then I give up, right? All right, and that, again, we said leads to, those kinds of behaviors lead to depression. Think about the same kinds of things in relationships. If I've been in several relationships, nothing ever works out, I never really get a commitment from somebody else, helplessness leads to hopelessness, leads to giving up on relationships altogether. And there are different ways that we can do that. I have a student who's writing on this right now about giving up and loneliness. And some people who are lonely actually push the envelope as far as kind of desperation. So they're not quite there yet, right? But that kind of grasping for control over the outcome a lot of times results in wasted resources as well. But those people aren't quite there to giving up. And that's a good thing, right? That is a good thing. Okay. So, what does all this lead to? All of this leads to, we've got helplessness, we have feelings of hopelessness, which lead to us giving up. And then, of course, all of that creates anxiety. Prior to depression, we've talked about feelings of anxiety always precede depression. So when we get to the stage of giving up, we are much closer to feelings of depression. And as I mentioned in last week's lesson, or as I mentioned in last week's episode, anxiety precedes depression. And what ends up happening physiologically is this. The anxiety increases our cortisol levels. Cortisol is our stress hormone. But what ends up happening is we become dysregulated in our stress hormones. We keep kicking up that stress hormone again and again and again. We kick up that stress hormone, and that increases those feelings of anxiety until we get to what is called our exhaustion stage when we are feeling stressed. And that exhaustion stage is a reduction in our cortisol levels. Remember, cortisol is our fight or flight levels, right? So we increase our cortisol when we go into our fight or flight stages. So increase our stress hormone because we increase our anxiety. Well, when that becomes dysfunctional, we are raising and lowering that stress hormone level, our cortisol levels, without really good reason for it. We begin to misfire because we have misassociations. I'm associating almost anything now as threatening, even shopping, right? I'm viewing shopping for the holidays as threatening. I already missed my Black Friday sales. I've already missed Cyber Monday sales. It's getting late. I've heard about the fact that things are getting backed up in shipping and at the ports. And now I'm creating this anxiety, right away, right on board, which then creates this dysfunction in our cortisol level. But if we continue that, we're going to get exhausted, as we all know. And when we get exhausted, our cortisol levels sink. They don't motivate us to get up and get motivated. And that is the key to depression. All right? So again, what do we need to do? We need to ward off. We need to ward off those feelings of depression. No, we need to ward off those feelings of anxiety. We need to ward off the anxiety in order to then stop the oncoming feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, and giving up, all of those things related to the depression that follows. Okay. Okay, so here we've got it leads to feelings of depression. Okay, so now what am I going to do? Well, the very first thing I want to do is I want to focus on then dealing with the holidays and the anxiety. So if you remember and if you recall on our agenda here, we said, what are we dealing with? And the very first thing that we're dealing with is dealing with anxiety during the holidays. So that's the first piece of advice that I want to talk about is, first of all, if we can forego those feelings of anxiety that we have during the holidays, then we know then that we can forego feelings of depression that follow later on. All right, and so what's the very first thing that we want to do in order to deal with our feelings of anxiety? The very first thing we want to do is we want to make a plan. So think about that during the holidays. How do you want to make a plan? What kind of plan do you want to make? Now, some of us are planners and others of us are not planners. And sometimes the idea of just simply making a plan can create anxiety for some of us, of course, right? So think about what kind of planner you are to begin with, right? Are you a person who focuses on the details, but then that creates a lot of anxiety for you? In making this plan, it will give you a sense of control. But once again, if you're the type of person that feels like you have a need to control every aspect of the holidays, then you're going to end up feeling even greater anxiety. So make a plan, but make sure that you're flexible in your plan. Remember, that is a coping skill, being flexible. If you remember that little saying that I remember when I was in first or second grade, that they said, the little song about don't sweat the small stuff, right? Don't sweat it. Don't sweat the small stuff. Oh, baby, just forget it. All right, we're going to cut all of that out. But if you've got to do some worrying, then worry about something big. Don't sweat the small stuff. You got to bend a little like a twig. And that's what you have to learn to do. We have to learn to bend like a twig in the wind. Otherwise, we snap and we break at any kind of wind whatsoever. Okay? So make a plan, but don't make it a chore to make a plan. Don't make it an obstacle. Don't make it an anxiety-producing event. All right? All right, so part of making a plan, again, makes you feel like you have a sense of control. Some of the things that you might want to think about is, how do you want to celebrate the holidays? All right. Now, one of the problems here that we get is that when we start in this mode where I have needs too, right? And what about my needs? And all of this holiday stuff is creating great anxiety. What about my needs? Okay, well, what you do need to consider your needs. But if your needs consist of being alone during the holidays, and you know that alone brings you great sadness, right? And it's also going to bring great sadness for your family members. You have got to balance your needs with other people's needs. And one of the reminders here that's a good reminder during the holidays is that we know scientifically from psychological evidence, finding it out all the way from children to adults, that it is better to give than to receive. And if you could remember that sort of throughout the holidays, that you are going to be required to give something of yourself in order to make the holidays meaningful. So decide that in advance and decide what and when and where you want to give of yourself. And then pay attention to the returns. One of the things that we're going to talk about is think about a gratitude journal during this time. Think about writing a gratitude journal during this time. And that might be part of your plan as well to get the most out of the holidays. Okay? So make a plan. It gives you control. The plan can't only be about yourself because it doesn't bring you the greatest rewards, including and especially these intrinsic rewards. And so, therefore, you don't only want to think about yourself, you want to think about other individuals as well when you're making this plan. Okay? All right. So, number one, for keeping anxiety at bay, make a plan. Make sure that part of your plan is keeping things simple, as I've kind of already said. So make sure that you are not bombarding yourself with things like shopping, right? Not bombarding yourself with things like writing Christmas cards. That used to be a thing that I loved to do, writing Christmas cards, because people don't send things in the mail, and I always liked getting Christmas cards. So getting them really felt really great, and so I always wanted to do that for other people. But by the time I was done grading and by the time I was done getting my house decorated for the holidays, it was December 23rd when I was sending out the cards, and then it became a burden, right? So don't burden yourself unnecessarily with things that you don't really need to be doing during the holiday. One of the things that I plan on doing, and I don't think I'm worried about it because my boys don't usually watch this, is I plan on giving this year. It's just been a hard year, and I want to keep things as simple as I can. We've already had the service for my husband, Stuart, and we also have had the celebration of my son's wedding. Those were two very big things. And so one way that I'm going to keep it simple this year is I'm going to give my boys money. I think that I think that's going to help me with shopping. And what I'm going to do then is fill their stockings with stockings. We don't always do stockings, but fill their stockings with little things that I want to give them, right? So cute little things that they may not think about or spend the money on, that I really have fun shopping for. So I have fun shopping. I don't feel the pressures of getting all of these things for them, because what I'm going to be doing really basically is giving them money, and I know that both of my sons are going to love that. Okay? Keep it simple. Figure out ways to keep it simple. And then, like I said, be a giver. Be a giver. And when you are a giver, this does not necessarily mean lots of money. So be a giver. And this can mean things like maybe you like to cook. One of the things that I found to be one of the biggest blessings that I've had is when my boys used to go to St. William's School. And at St. William's School, my husband, Stuart, at the time, he was 41 years old, and he's always had heart problems. That was part of the complications when or we think, for when he passed away. And one of the things that the community did, so St. William's community did for me, that was just an unbelievably great weight off of my shoulders, was for an entire month, they cooked us meals. So the whole time that Stuart was in the hospital, when he had the heart attack and he was in the hospital, and then when he was back in the hospital for the open heart surgery, and afterwards when he was home recovering, we had food prepared for us every single night. We didn't get food every single night, but we had leftovers, so we had food every single night for a month. So what a wonderful thing to do. That's an inexpensive thing to do for people. Another thing is that's pretty inexpensive, especially during this time, is giving individuals some beautiful flowers. In fact, I don't have my flowers in the picture, and I'm thinking I might go get my flowers over there. Just because they're so beautiful, and they don't have to cost a lot of money. I got this a bouquet of flowers from Kroger, and it costs about $10 for a beautiful Christmas bouquet. So keep your eyeballs open, and that makes a wonderful gift. People love putting that on their table. But don't forget your audience, right? So that's another way that we could find inexpensive ways to give to other people. As I said, cards. People like to receive cards, especially with a handwritten note. This might not be something that you can do for everybody, but certainly think about it for some of the people that maybe you don't keep in contact with very often, but are very special to you and would really appreciate hearing from you from a distance, for example. Also give of your talents as well. So time and talents. What do you do? Do you sew? Do you knit? Are you a crafter? One of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm looking to see. I have it over there. I don't think I showed you. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to go get it. Hold on one second. So, commercial break. Hold on. Oh, and did you see what I did? Brought my flowers here. So beautiful flowers really add a lot for the holidays. And women my age, we love flowers. There we go. And what I went away for actually was to show you this. This is a little wallet. I'm going to put it on this side over here. Look at how cute that is. That matches with the holidays. So this is a little wallet that I made. I actually put this on there. It didn't come with this little thing on there. So a little wallet that holds my, not that I always ever have that much cash, but it holds my business cards as well. And I got it to match the color of my healthy mind, body, spirit. So the wallet here matches my little, this way. I'm going to do it like this. No, I'm not. There we go. No. So the wallet matches. I should put this on here like that. Which side am I going on? Here we go. So the wallet matches my business cards. The wallet matches my business cards pretty well with the green. I could have done blue. I didn't really feel like doing blue. But the idea here is this. This I crafted from a place that is local here in the Detroit metropolitan area. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to give them a little plug. It's Tandy Leather here. And what they do is they have rows and rows of these cute little, and not even just little, big purses and backpacks and things like that you could make. And you can dye them all different colors that you want, whatever colors you want. Some people did dye those a beautiful burgundy and a beautiful brown. People would love those gifts, and they're handmade, and you spent time on it. And I'll tell you, they give you a great discount when you purchase, and actually have groups of people that come together, and it's a great fun, engaging thing that you can do. People come together and as families, and you can do those. And so that's kind of what I'm hoping as well, as a little gift for my kids for the holidays as well. So again, be creative is what we're saying. When you want to be a giver, you want to be creative. It doesn't have to cost a lot of money. I want to show you a couple other things that I'm giving to the family for the holidays as well. All right, some things to think about. All right. I put them, of course, way out of my reach. Okay, so what I am giving the family as well is, because Shackley actually is, as much as Shackley supplements, help supplement many people's incomes, especially people like me who are single, widowed, who have or a second income that's helping out. Shackley really helps out people that are real hardworking American people. So know that as well. Not only just financially when you get involved by helping individuals like me, but also with your supplements. It's helping you nutritionally. I've never seen science, so much science, which is the reason why I got into Shackley in the first place. I've always been a health I've always been aware of health and had always, with the Stewart's health concerns, I've always been quite aware and on top of health, and came into information about Shackley really very recently. And so these are some of the things that I'm planning on giving as gifts. I'm just looking. I don't think I recorded all that thing with the little purse. All right, but that's okay. So here, you can give as a gift what they call their all-purpose cleaner is what this is, and they call it Basic H. Now this here, I'll put it on this side. Now this here obviously is the bigger container, and you may or may not need a big container like this. I'll tell you how long it lasts in just a minute. So there are smaller containers that have what's called the Basic H home cleaning product. Here's a smaller container of the Basic H home cleaning product. Okay, but what I'm giving as a gift is I'm purchasing these bottles. So these little tiny small Get Clean bottles that are empty. These cost $1 each. I'm buying one of those great big Basic H cleansers or cleaning products, right? I'm putting that and filling up these little Get Clean bottles with the Basic H. And so what's my gift? My gift is one of these Get Clean bottles. And then I'll also be giving for family and friends, because I can afford to do this. Each one of them, one of these bottles. And so I'll give them one of these Get Clean filled up with the Basic H, and then I will give them an empty bottle. And we have empty bottles for cleaning your mirrors, for tough grease, and then also for everyday all-purpose cleaning as well. This is a great gift. These 3 bottles cost $8. This bottle cost $1. This bottle, which could fill up many of these small bottles, costs $8. And so for about $20, you could probably give about 15 gifts of well under $20. You could give, $20. You could give 15 of these all-purpose cleaners along with the bottle for about $20 to about 15 different people, I would say. So That would be a wonderful gift for family and friends. So things to think about for gifts. So be a giver, and it doesn't have to be expensive to be a giver. All right, moving on. That took way longer than I thought it was going to. Now what I want to do is talk about the second part of this anxiety. So we are still on trying to get strategies for decreasing anxiety, because remember, this is key because it leads to depression. So the second piece of advice, the first one was to make a plan. The second piece of advice that I have for you is to learn to self-regulate. So let's talk a little bit, first of all, about what that means to self-regulate. So when we're self-regulating, what we are doing is allocating what we're doing is we are allocating resources to all of our whatever we need to get done appropriately. We're allocating our resources for the demands that we have throughout our day appropriately. And some of those resources would be, of course, our time. So when we are self-regulating appropriately, we are allocating time appropriately. Also, thinking. Cognitive resources as well. We need to regulate those so we're not spending all of our days, and I do this a lot, pacing, right? Pacing, trying to figure out what's next and organize things, right? Because where are we? We're in our heads for the most part, right? So what do we need to regulate? We need to regulate our time. We need to regulate our thinking as well, right? And then lastly, for now, we want to regulate our emotions as well, right? We don't want to get excited. We don't want to get in arguments with our families, right? And this is part of making your plan about what do you want to do. Because if we are going to holidays that are stressful events, we have to first of all decide whether or not we want to go, right? We can regulate by regulating ourselves right out of the picture, right? Right out of the holidays is what we can do. And if they tend to be unhealthy, now that doesn't mean you spend the holidays alone. It just means that you choose who you're going to spend the holidays with, right? To help you regulate those emotions. All right? So what I'm going to do is I am going to go through a couple very simple strategies to help you think about more productively how you can regulate your emotions or regulate your time, your thoughts, your emotions, all in order to better reduce anxiety. All right, so here are some suggestions. First of all, be in the here and now. When we are in the here and now, we are taking notice of what is going on in front of our eyes. And this helps us in so many ways. First of all, it helps us because when we're not in the here and now, we focus on the past, and when we feel disappointments from the past, we feel feelings of depression. When we are not in the here and now, we might focus on the future, and when we focus on the future creates anxiety. So when we are living in the here and now, we do help lower and alleviate feelings of anxiety and feelings of depression by paying attention to what is going on right now. All right? So that means we're not in our heads. Where are we? We are outside of ourselves is where we are. we are looking at nature, for example. Because there's wonderful things to notice in nature. I've talked about that in our in previous episodes, not in the depression, but in my love and sex series. I talked about that. So how do we raise ourselves out of feelings of loneliness and depravity? We raise ourselves out of those feelings by being in touch with things that are alive, friends, nature, right? So taking a nature walk. So being in the here and now helps us. Okay. We also want to be grateful. Gratitude is intrinsically rewarding. Now, one of the things that we haven't talked a lot about is the way our bodies work and the way our minds work relative to rewards. But rewards can be external to us, like we get some money, we get paid for our hard work. But rewards can also be internal to us. So a sense of accomplishment, a sense, not necessarily always of pride, although that is part of it as well. But feelings of gratitude aren't really feelings of pride. They are just feelings of contentment, right? So feelings of gratitude, we call them cathartic. They're cathartic because what do? They release tension. So So, feelings of gratitude, part of the internal reward is feelings of contentment. Why? Because it releases tension inside of ourselves. When we, for example, are stressing over bills, all right? It's payday for bills, and I hate paying bills. Okay, I don't know who enjoys it. I don't even think that people with gobs of money enjoy paying bills, right? But of course, we have to pay bills. And so during that time, let's say, or we practiced, we wrote in our gratitude journal before every time before we had to pay our bills. We wrote something and we thought about maybe 3 good things that we could be grateful for. Well, if that releases tension, that certainly helps us when we are sitting down to pay our bills, right? And then what a sense of reward that we get after paying our bills. We think about all the people who aren't able to sit down and write a check so easily to pay their bills. You are thankful that you can make ends meet, and maybe even that you had time that week and money that week to go out and do something extra special. Right? Imagine your outlook on paying the bills if that's what you spent your time doing. And what ends up happening then is it also creates a reciprocal exchange of positive emotions when we are grateful for other people and we express it, right? It becomes cathartic for the other person, a release of tension, right? All of my work hasn't gone unnoticed, right? As mothers, appreciated by our kids, all of our work hasn't gone unnoticed, right? And when we express it to the other person, remember we had talked about gratitude letters, for example, that creates this reciprocity and ease of tension in that relationship. So it's a great way to reduce anxiety. And then remember what I also said too, don't forget, think about a gratitude journal, because that also does help then keep us in the here and now. It also helps us release tension, and it focuses us on a different perspective that might be necessary for that time to help us get through some anxious times. Okay, well, that's not what I wanted to show you. Okay, and then the next one, savor the moment. Savor the moment. In savoring the moment, Yeah, if you want to see the findings, if you want to see the outcomes of gratitude, go see my last video that I did on a celebration of Thanksgiving, and so on gratitude that I did last week. Uh, So, our next one, savor the moment. We've already talked about this several times in our videos. Savoring the moment is taking actual time to think about a specific event that was very enjoyable for you. And in doing so, what you end up doing is actually engaging or actually activating the physiology that was associated with that good feeling. So, spending time savoring the moment. And this might be sitting in front of your fireplace with a great cup of coffee. What a wonderful thing to be grateful for, to have heat in the midst of all this cold weather that we have, to have a delicious cup of coffee, to sit even if we're by ourselves, so that we could be alone with our own thoughts and not actually be so afraid to be alone with our own thoughts. Savor the moment. If I were always thinking of good things during my alone time, I might not be so afraid of being alone. Listen to your body. Now, this I want you to think a little bit about. One of the things I've kind of been thinking about on my own here has been how much information we get from outside of our bodies, right? The majority of things that we learn have to come from outside of our bodies. And that's interesting that we haven't been able to evolve in order to get those algorithms correct, to make correct predictions, right? We need to depend on other people to learn, or books, other people who've written books, other people who've passed down information through traditions. We have to learn through, the majority of the time, gaining information that is all outside of ourselves. When we listen to our bodies, it's the one and only time that we can get information actually about ourselves that nobody else really has, right? Information on our own bodies. Now think about that. Even when we're thinking thoughts that are all our own, many of those thoughts have been motivated by things that we've learned, right? Other resources that we've had. And just want to make sure I'm recording here too. So when we are listening to our bodies, we are typically not depending on other outside information, right? So we're utilizing resources to listen to our body. Now, this is important for us because in our ability to regulate, we have to be paying attention to things like, did my heart rate go down, or is my heart rate increasing? This is tough stuff. It's tough stuff for me to do. When somebody's antagonizing me, the first thing I want to do is control them to stop that kind of, antagonism. That's the first thing that I want to do. Well, what am I going to do? Wrap my hands around their throat, right? How can I stop what they are physically doing? So what I need to do is take control of my reaction to it. This is very difficult, isn't it? Especially if somebody just knows how to get you, whether or not they didn't do it on purpose. That's irrelevant, isn't it? Because it still gets to you, right? Some of those things are things that we deal with when you come and see me for mental health visits. We deal with those things that trigger us so that we can regulate better. But listening to your body is important as long as you don't spend all your time listening to your body, because what ends up happening is you don't get in outside information that's necessary for you to learn. And learning is a part of being humble. So necessary for you to learn, listening to things outside of yourself. And also then listening outside of yourself, it's necessary for us to regulate as well, right? We need to take that into consideration when we regulate our systems. I didn't bring any water with me over here. And now I'm looking for some, which I might take a commercial break and go get some. Um, listening to your body, right? Listen to your body, but we have to have that balance. The last thing I was going to say about this, I think is okay to say. And that is this. I have always been a passionate person. And in part of being a passionate person, what you end up doing is you can get riled up pretty easily. And oh, by the way, people enjoy riling you up for whatever reason. Well, I'm the master of my own ship, right? I'm the master of my own domain, captain of my own ship, master of my own whatever. So I have to make those choices about whether or not I'm going to react. As I get older, it's easier for me to not react, and I would imagine that we've seen enough science to show us that, yeah, we do have better control over our regulation as we get older. But I have to say that one of the things for me is I think about that as my spirit, right? My spirit. And as a Christian woman, I think about that as my Holy Spirit, right? So my spirit's me being a human in the life that I have makes me have certain inalienable rights. And from my perspective, what that is it makes me holy, all right? So it can make me holy. So my spirit, I am hoping, leads me in a holier way. And that's because I see great benefit in that. However, holy, sanctified blessings is what we're talking about. Okay? And so that's what I stop and do. I stop and reflect. I stop and reflect on things like, am I thinking, am I treating myself in holy ways? And that is so am I guarding my heart? Am I guarding my words? Am I guarding my thoughts? So am I treating myself in holy ways? And so that, I think, is maybe a good way to look at what is going on inside your body without looking at it too long and too hard. Oh my gosh, I might be having an anxiety attack because my heart rate went up. Oh, I might be having an anxiety attack because my blood pressure went up. So that's not what we're talking about with looking at our bodies. But it is about regulating and trying to think about whether or not, I think that the best way that I can put it for how I've regulated in improved ways since I've been older is trying to regulate myself in holier ways, right? So that's, I don't go into depravity, which again is wicked, is wickedness. It's moral wickedness, and yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, it's immorality and wickedness is what it is. Depravity. Okay. I don't know why I always spend like 10 minutes on that definition. Okay. What else can we do to regulate? We have found, and we've talked about this a little bit, and we can meditate. Now, I do think, well, I know from Richard Davidson's studies and many studies in psychological science that meditation has great benefits. So challenge yourself to be able to meditate. But the most healthy ways of meditating are to meditate in ways that where you are not just simply, you're not experiencing the thought process. This is about control, is what it is. The whole thing here about not feeling helpless is about feelings of control. And meditation is no different. It is learning how to control your thoughts in a way that isn't having to take captive of each and every thought. Okay? And what I mean and what I mean by that is that we don't have to reel back in an unwanted thought, like a rumination, for example. No, because what we're doing is simply exercising our minds, right? It's as if when we exercise our body, it's not like we have to have a bear behind us or a purpose in order to run. The purpose is the exercise. The same thing with meditation. The purpose of the meditation is to exercise our minds. And if you are sort of doing this sort of free flowing with your mind, you are not exercising this element of control, which is all about helping us alleviate feelings of helplessness. All right? So think about meditation as well. And one of the things I am looking at doing is I'm looking at expanding my business. And one of the ways I'm going to be expanding my business is that I'm going to, prior to COVID, I had looked at having a building and being able to provide all kinds of services. One of the services that I would provide is looking at a kind of retreat where individuals would spend a weekend, and part of that weekend would be learning how to meditate in ways that give yourself a lot of great self-control. And in this business, I'm also looking at possibly being able to serve veterans free. And so if you've got questions, please make sure that you email me about those questions, or if that intrigues you or interests you, I am getting some of my website more up to date, but as you know, juggling a lot of things, as many of you do with one job or a second job, right? So email me if you've got some interest in what I'm talking about with this retreat, and also helping veterans get free services, free mental health services. So DR period, F as in Frank, ERA, V as in Victor, ICH, at healthymindbodyspirit.net. Please email me if you have some interest in that and let me know. Okay. Now, the third thing when dealing with anxiety around the holidays is to make sure that you are engaging with other people. Our greatest need, as I've said numerous times, is our need for other individuals. And so what we want to do is take advantage of the healthy benefits of being with individuals, in particular those individuals that we love. Now let's just take a little bit of a closer look at this, to maybe take a look at some questions that you might have about engaging. So for example, what if you are introverted? Then what do you think that you should do about engaging? Shouldn't introverted people just basically take care of themselves and not really be with other people? Wouldn't that make introverted people less anxious? So that's what we're talking about now. I'm talking a little bit about engaging, but the anxiety that is created for many individuals because they're forced to engage during the holidays. Introverts in particular. Okay, and so what do introverts need? Do they need to stay by themselves? So here I'm making a plan and I'm considering my needs, and my needs are I'm introverted, so it's very difficult for me to engage with other people, right? What the introvert needs to think about is this. The introvert gets resources from relaxing, from downtime, from quiet time. So what the introvert needs is downtime, quiet time, to get those resources on board prior to visiting family, right? So you are energized, because introverts get their energy sapped from them. They lose their energy from being with other people. It takes a lot of energy for introverts to talk to other people and think about what to say to other people. And so this takes a lot of resources because it makes them anxious. So introverts, get some resources on board before you visit. And you might also think about some ways that you can rebuild your resources without being a recluse, right? Or without isolating yourself from the rest of the family. So, for example, you might be able to reboot your energy if you read. So go away and spend a half an hour reading, or take a little nap. A little nap can rejuvenate us, a lot of us, for a lot of different reasons, especially if the whole scene is getting us extremely anxious. You might want to just remove yourself from the scene, but do something that will re-energize yourself. All right? Think about what might do that. Even if you go away and do a little prayerful meditation, right? That might also help you alleviate the anxiety that introverts feel when they're around large groups. Do you fear being evaluated? Is that one of the reasons why you don't like to be around other people? And we call this evaluation apprehension. And that's actually what a lot of introverts feel, of course. They feel a fear of being evaluated, and that creates even greater anxiety. So that's something to think about as well as you are deciding on what plans you're going to make for these holidays. Are you around people who evaluate you in critical ways? And are those people toxic to you? But be careful, because maybe you're the toxic individual. And what I mean by that is maybe you are so wounded that it's very difficult for you to be around anybody without feeling evaluated. That is a feeling of a lack of control. Again, how much of our negative feelings are associated with feelings of a lack of control. When somebody evaluates you, right, and you have evaluation apprehension, it's not because you think they're going to evaluate you in a positive way. It's because you feel that they are going to evaluate you in a negative way. And so that anxiety that you feel takes up resources and that an introvert simply does not have, right? All right. So are you the person, though, that is so damaged or so wounded that you feel everyone is evaluating you? And those are things that what we're talking about, these strategies that I've been talking about throughout this entire series, helps you build feelings of control, which are feelings of confidence. And again, gratitude changes your intrinsic value that you have for yourself. So when you're changing your intrinsic value, when others evaluate you, not so big of a deal. What's your value? We're going to talk about that more later on. I hope you caught that. So how do you sort of recoup your resources that that you're spending all the time on worrying about being evaluated? Well, obviously you have to have more confidence in yourself. How do you get more confidence in yourself? Well, you take control. You get yourself feelings of control, but you don't do that by isolating yourself. You have to be able to feel confident in your engagement, right? When you're engaged with others, you have to feel confident. And so, feelings of control, along with some of these strategies that you're using, for example, self-regulating, right? And savoring moments and being grateful. When you're grateful, you don't worry so much about how people evaluate you. So values are the key to not worrying about if you are evaluated. Look at the word value in there, right? That's what you're worried about being evaluated on, your values. Okay? So, know your values. Now, the next section that we're going to talk about, so the first section that we talked about is dealing with anxiety. The next section I want to talk about is how do you deal with being alone? Okay, and so dealing with being alone really is dependent on perspective. I had a little bit of a COVID scare right before Thanksgiving. And I was fine. I tested negative, but there was a little bit of a scare. And because there was a little bit of a scare about COVID before Thanksgiving, I ended up spending Thanksgiving all by myself. So the first Thanksgiving after Stuart passes, and remember, even though we were divorced, he was still living in the house. So the first Thanksgiving after Stuart passes, and I am spending it without any family, Although my son stops by later on, and we distanced and we masked up, and so we were very good about that. Actually, he did stop by, and again, I tested negative the day before, but I got the results on Thursday. Actually, he came over because I got the results after I tested negative on Wednesday. I got the results later Thursday. So he came over, and so there was no fear when he came over, although we did socially distance. But this is the first Thanksgiving that I have ever in my life spent by myself. And it was after I lost Stuart. So, perspective, right? Right? I could have been very sad. I could have ruminated about all the reasons why I should be sad. But actually, I was really quite grateful. I got caught up on a lot of the things that I had to get caught up with my students. Not everything, but a lot of things that I had to get caught up with my students. I got some of the house cleaned. I got cooking done that I wanted to get done, and the cooking was for me. And my pace was all my own. It actually was a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I wasn't even apprehensive about it being not wonderful because I was by myself. I knew it was going to be a nice little break. And even though it was on Thanksgiving, it was a welcomed little break where I got to be completely by myself and had no responsibilities to anyone else. That's a perspective of gratefulness, even in the midst of something that could have been really depressing. Could have been really depressing, right? So much of being alone is perspective. Now, there are things that we might want to worry about, or we might have to worry about when we are alone, right? We might have to worry about our safety when we are alone. But I was thinking today about how we put that, or how I've been able to put that in perspective, right? I'm just going to leave it there. I'm just going to say that. Putting your safety, even your feelings of safety, you put those in perspective as well, right? You lock your doors, you have a dog, you have somebody check in on you on a regular basis, you know your neighbors, all of those things, right? So being alone doesn't have to be the worst thing in the world where you are filling up and rewarding yourself with things like hedonic pleasures. I want to see if I talk about that. Yeah, I do. Okay, good. When you're alone, keep your thoughts positive. Again, I could have thought really sad thoughts about all the horrible things that have happened this past year. And now I'm sitting home and blaming COVID and blaming laws and rules about COVID. And it had become, and these things make you cynical and they make you bitter when you don't stay positive. And it's not like, once again, I have said this before, it's not like staying positive means that you put your head in the clouds. We all are made to have a natural inclination to stay positive. It's called the positivity bias. We look at things more positively. Our friends, ourselves, our future, our children, our memories, they're usually more positive. Our talents, our characteristics, they're usually more positive than they are negative. So we have a natural inclination to see things positive. What we do is we create habits where we ruminate and see things negative again and again. So again, keeping things positive, our natural inclination is to do that. So we're not talking about keeping our head in the clouds, but we are talking about things like gratitude journal, writing down 3 good things, looking forward to the time alone so you can get things done or your house clean, and then taking those small pleasures and enjoying them as well, right? The intrinsic values that you get because you cleaned your house, as well as the extrinsic or external rewards that you get because your house smells and looks great. For example, little things, because I made this silly little wallet, right? And so, and what? And now I've got pleasure in this little wallet. Even though I know the mistakes I've made on this wallet, right? I know, but look at that wallet. So taking these small little pleasures, right? And then maybe even, like I said, sharing them with other people. When you're alone, do something you love. Do something that you love. And preferably, do it with somebody you love as well. So when you're alone, you're doing something that you love, and what you are doing is turning around your memories, your thoughts, and even the neurochemistry that you have going on inside your body and inside your brain. And dopamine attaches us to one another. So dopamine neurotransmitters are being set off when we are with other individuals, especially other individuals that create really positive responses in us, right? That creates attachment, dopamine. Eating delicious and good food for you can create tryptophan, like turkey from Thanksgiving creates tryptophan, and tryptophan produces serotonin, and that's the reason why you get so tired and groggy after Thanksgiving dinner, because your tryptophan has increased. And what does it do? Well, it doesn't really make you feel less depressed. It makes you feel a little tired, but that tired is also associated with feelings of contentment. And that's what serotonin actually does for us. So share a great meal that increases your serotonin and also increases feelings of attachment, which are increased by dopamine, a neurotransmitter in the drug. In the drug, I was going to say, and the love drug. a neurotransmitter in the brain, it also increases what we call the love drug, oxytocin, as well, which also attaches us to one another. So do something that you love, engage in things. It gets all of those cognitive faculties going, as well as helps us regulate some of those wonderful emotional feelings that we have as well. And when we are engaging with other people and doing something that we love, think also about the whole giving thing, and it's better to give than to receive. So when you're doing something that interests you or that you love, think about not only doing it for you, but doing it for somebody else as well. So when you're doing something that you love, you're not simply engaging in hedonic pleasures, but you're engaging in meaning and purpose as well. And those meaning and purpose, and actually foremost, meaning and purpose, because the meaning and purpose when you are doing something that you love with somebody that you love is creating meaning and purpose in that relationship. Okay? Alrighty. Now, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was to remember to also take control of your finances. The last thing that can create anxiety for us. And the thing that we want to remember is that it's not about the money. That there are many different simple pleasures that we can engage in that have nothing to do with money. So some things that might be little commercial break right here, trying to open something up and it's not letting me open it up. Here we go. So why is it that it's not about money? Because one of the things that we know is that money simply cannot buy happiness. There is a theory that we talk about in positive psychology, which is called the paradox of affluence. And the paradox of affluence has to do with the idea that despite the fact that we have had over the last, not so much the last, 5 years or so, or a few years, but prior to that, over the last 30 to 40 years, we had significant increases in wealth. However, we have not shown the same kinds of increases in happiness. And so we know that once individuals are above a certain poverty level, that increases in wealth do not equate to increases in happiness. And this is called the paradox of affluence. And so why doesn't, what can we do so that we do not get sort of wrapped up in this idea where money is important around the holidays, right? So I need to buy, and I need the anxiety of the things that children are looking for, or the things that people are looking for. This is really important, and I want other people to kind of know this as well. I've been on a regular basis, I try and look for a family that's a family in need. And you do this in many different ways. There are organizations that help you along. Your church can likely help you along. And what you end up doing is receiving a list of things that the family needs. And then people go and they help them have a Merry Christmas, and it's a wonderful thing to do. But what you will end up finding inevitably is that there are things on the list that you think that people shouldn't have on that list if they are asking other people for a handout, right? That they should probably worry more about their basic needs, to have a great Christmas dinner on the table, that their kids have their basic needs. But when you start seeing expensive things on their list that are frivolous, or that for used for discretionary income, it makes people feel a little bit cynical about giving money to individuals or doing these things. That's something, once again, that you can't take control over necessarily. However, I've had people limit those lists to those basic things that individuals need, or you make sure that those are the things that you're buying, right? Because you also want to make sure that your children, in particular, if you are in a needy condition, that your children also know that money isn't the most important thing, right? That we are all obligated to teach our children that money isn't more important than people, and that things aren't more important than relationships. We are all obligated to give our children that example if we expect this country to be ruled by people who find relationships and people more important than things and money. Okay, all right. So, what are some of the things that you can do to sort of build up some of the things we're talking about, right? To take advantage and use some behavioral strategies that help you cope a little bit better during this holiday season. Realize, relative to money, realize that you can spend money on experiences, and these experiences are more life-satisfying events. And they contribute to life satisfaction is what they do. All right, so you're like, wow, Dr. Feravich, if I spend money on experiences, I often don't have something. And that's what a lot of people think about. I don't have something to show for it when I spend $5,000 on a nice vacation. I don't have something to show for it. Or, by the way, Dr. Feravich, I can't spend $5,000 on a nice vacation. But you can spend time on things like sledding, right? Or taking advantage of this winter time. I saw somebody giving away free cross-country skis outside the house the other day. So going cross-country skiing with your children. This puts you in the here and now, gives you experiences that you can savor later on, and it also helps you get back to nature where we can see some wonderful creations. All right, so spend money on experiences rather than on things. Experiences need to be or should be simple pleasures, because remember, more is not better. We've talked about this before when we were talking about happiness in our love and sex series. Use the funds, use money to benefit others rather than ourselves, because remember, giving is better than receiving. We have better payoffs when we give than when we receive. Capitalize on others' good fortune. And so when other people are having, for example, a wonderful holiday, a wonderful Christmas with great blessings that are coming their way, well, being around those kind of people is pretty beneficial and can be very beneficial, right? They're more grateful. They are more likely to give of themselves as well, right? So capitalize on other people's good fortune. When we don't capitalize on other people's good fortunes, what are we doing? Hanging around with people who are in bad moods and cynical, right? What sense does that make, right? Okay, so what else can we do to help take control of our holidays that doesn't have to do with taking control of money, or doesn't have to do with spending, letting money get out of control? Don't forget to don't confuse well-being with being well off, right? Don't confuse well-being, which is our mental and physical feelings of contentment, of health, being healthy both mentally and physically. Being healthy both mentally and physically is worth a lot more than being well off. Make wise comparisons so that we are comparing ourselves when we look at the holiday, for example. When we are looking at the holiday and seeing what other people have that we don't have, right? Or the lists or the lights on the house, or how they're celebrating with so many people in their family that they post on Facebook, and it makes us feel bad in comparison. Watch how you're comparing yourself to other people. Maybe Facebook is not the place to be during the holidays sometimes. Maybe it really is to be with people instead of viewing people, right? Compare yourself with people who are doing slightly better off. It's motivating for you, right? Or people who aren't doing quite as well off. It inspires gratitude, right? So it's not just looking on, oh, those poor lowly people, right? It's a perspective on it that builds gratitude. Keep a gratitude journal. I've already talked about. Write down 3 good things every night and the reasons why they happened, because so that we see that there are things that happen that we can be grateful for, and also that often they're not of our own control. Discover your flow. So what do you love and what do you get engaged in that helps you get in the zone or feel like you're in the zone? Finish what you start and experience it along the way so that you are in the here and now. Your eyes are not always on that future goal, right? Find a hobby so that you can experience wonderful things along the way. Cultivate family ties or important relationships, intimate ties with other people, and practice spirituality. Think about meditation. Think about you being a holy temple and making sure that those things that you are producing inside your mind and your body are holy. Holy for you, right? Okay, all right. Now, moving on to our final phase of this for our very last episode for this series, our question of the week. And today's question of the week that I have for you is, what are your values? Because so much in life is contingent on knowing our values. Now, how can I say that? So much in life is on knowing our values. Can't I really just sort of make them up as I go along the way? Well, first of all, values are emotionally laden. Lots of emotion and values. That's why people stand up for their values, right? So it's what moves us, and it gives us our passion. Our values move us to behaviors, they move us to action because they give us our passion. I talked to my students about this the other day, and I told them if they are not aware of their values, what ends up happening is life kind of tosses you about in every direction, and you lose that feeling of control. And when you then lose that feeling of control because you don't have a strong stance on your values, you lose passion in life. Again, it's our values that move us from one place to another in this life. And if you don't have those values, you don't have passion. And if you don't have passion, what are you going to do with your life at 45 and 50 years old and 60 years old? Why wouldn't you want to cash out, right? At that age, when you have no passion, what do you base your passion on? What does everybody base their passion on? They base it on values. So know your values. Your values don't have to be the same as mine, right? And that also doesn't have to motivate our passions when our values conflict with other people. Find those people that share your values. So first of all, know your values, and then find those people that share your values. And instead of making enemies out of the people that don't, draw intimate relationships with those people who do in ways that you are consciously giving, so that you can build intrinsic value in who you are. Confidence, self-control, intrinsic value in who you are. Knowing your values means you will value you. This is Dr. Annette Feravich, and thank you for joining me. For those of you who have joined me for this series that I've had on depression and behavior, remember that these are all live videos. What am I going to be doing over the holidays? I'm going to be editing these videos so that we can get them out there on YouTube, and you'll see the edited versions instead of these long versions where you see me switching through tapes and things. Remember, when they're out there, to subscribe. Please subscribe. I want to build up my subscriptions, because I think what I'm doing is unique. You do not see these large series from a professional in the field that can really help you during these troubled times. So if you like what you see, please please subscribe to my videos as well. And also, the big thing is share the videos. I've got a lot that I have here, and I think it can really motivate people to change their lives, to find real meaning and purpose in their lives, so that they are really motivated beyond 35 and 40 years old, where they're about ready to give up on things. We need meaning and purpose to drive us to do new things. Okay? All right. Remember to visit me at www.healthymindbodyspirit.net. I am working diligently on getting my videos up on my website and updating my website, where I'm going to be adding things like recipes and other good information that will be updated on a regular basis. And keep your eyeballs open for me expanding this business in a way that will offer individuals retreats for the weekend, where they will get nutrition advice, meditation advice. And what this is going to allow me to do is it's going to allow me to be able to give these same kinds of services to our veterans, which is what we so substantially need for our veterans who have been so deprived of mental and physical health needs. And meeting those needs. I've always wanted to do something in that area, and you can help me do it, in particular by liking and subscribing and sharing my videos. Thank you so much for joining me. From here on out, I will still be here on Mondays at 4 o'clock. I will let you know in the future what the schedule is going to be. I will also be getting a podcast up, and on my podcast, I will already have 3 complete video series. So as you start watching the podcast, find out about the other podcasts that I have out there. So short videos will be coming out for between now and the end of the year. And keep your eyes open for some interesting information on my website and on YouTube. All right, thanks so much. Take care.